Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. FPL Consult here, and today we're gonna do the Game Week 9 wildcard video. So I know it is a little early into Game Week 9, there is still the international break to go, but if you are set on a Game Week 9 wildcard, it makes sense for you to activate it now so that you can take advantage of price rises. Right, during the course of the international break, players' prices will still rise, so you wouldn't want to be priced out of certain players, so it makes sense to activate it now, and this video can act as a starting point for those of you who are on a Game Week 9 wildcard. So hopefully you enjoy this video. If you do, please give it a like and also subscribe as well if you are new around here. So on a Game Week 9 wildcard, the biggest question I'd be asking myself is whether I go for KDB first and then switch to Salah from Game Week 12 onwards when KDB blanks and Salah's fixtures pick up, or do I go with Salah right from the get-go? Now, Son is out of the question as Spurs fixtures aren't great, and he's also not, in good form at the moment. So it's really between these two at this point, and ultimately we will definitely want Salah at least for Game Week 13 and 14 when Liverpool play Forest and Leeds. So the most logical way would either be to start with Salah right now in Game Week 9 or get KDB, which then allows us to get Salah back in with just one transfer. Now, I know at this stage a lot of us are going to write Salah off and we're thinking he's finished, but I thought we should do a little bit of comparison, right? A little bit more in-depth research as to how these two fare, right? So statistically wise, as you guys can see in the graphic, it's pretty obvious that Salah has been underperforming and he does pale in comparison to KDB, right? Touches and shots in the box are the only stats where he's doing better than KDB, right? And with KDB, you know what you're getting, right? He's a playmaker for City. He's just always at the forefront of chance creation for City, and which would explain the graphic where we see he has a much better expected assist. He puts in more crosses, creates far more chances, etc., etc. Right? So this is what the numbers tell us, that comparatively, just based on individual performances wise, KDB is the better player, right? So far, at least based on this season's performances, right? But when you compare the factors outside of the numbers, I think this is where it starts to paint a slightly different picture, right? So for Liverpool, they have been on a pretty rough patch, right? Key players being injured, right? And they are returning, like Thiago and also Fabinho and Matip, right? So, but because these players have been out for quite a while, right, majority of the first 6 game weeks, a weakened Liverpool team actually does affect the overall performance of the team for at least the first 6 game weeks, where we saw them kind of, drop a bit in form. And that's where we also see this kind of seep into Salah's numbers, where they don't compare as well, right? And when you take a look at City, of course, they've pretty much had their full squad, and it's easy to see they are blowing their opposition away, right, week after week. So it does leak into De Bruyne's numbers as well. So the point is that the overall team performance actually does play a part when it comes to comparing these two players. And with Thiago and Matip back in for Liverpool, we saw against Ajax, right, though it wasn't their best performance, I still do feel like we can agree Jota, Salah and Diaz up top looked like we were seeing glimpses of the old Liverpool, right, flowy attacking football. So I do expect Liverpool to at least start showing up in terms of overall team performances, which does help Salah's case, right? And on to the next thing that we should consider is fixtures and minutes, right? So over the next 3 game weeks, Salah has Brighton at home, Arsenal away and City at home. KDB has United, Southampton at home before playing Liverpool in game week 11 away, right? So fixtures wise, I would say that it's pretty similar for both because they play 2 tough games and a relatively easier one. I can say that because Brighton now have lost Graham Potter to Chelsea, so I do think that Brighton at home could be a good game for Salah to get some returns, right? So the next question is really minutes, right? And we know Salah, he's pretty much guaranteed in 90 minutes whether there are Champions League games in the midweek or not. But for KDB, he has been rested once before in the first 6 game weeks, and that was the game against Nottingham Forest, right, which is a relatively easier side. So if you look at City's fixtures and we slot the Champions League games in, City play 5 games from game week 9 to game week 11. So they have a Champions League tie against Copenhagen, with the first leg being between game week 9 and 10 and the second leg being between 10 and 11. Now, if I'm Pep, it will make sense to me to rest KDB right smack in the middle of these games, and that happens to also be the easiest game, which is Southampton at home, right? And this allows him to then play KDB against United, Liverpool, and the 2 Champions League games, which are the tougher ones. So the thought of KDB potentially missing out on Southampton is also another factor that would make me go with Salah, who is kind of guaranteed 90 minutes in every game, right? Whether or not there are Champions League games midweek. Right? On top of this, going with Salah from the get-go also actually saves you banking in a transfer that you will eventually have to make in game week 12 when City blank. So all things considered, I would argue that even though comparing them individually, KDB is by far performing much better, right? He has better form, better numbers, that it still does make sense to have Salah on a game week 9 wildcard just because of all these surrounding factors that we've just talked about. So on a game week 9 wildcard, we also want to consider the fixtures coming up, right? Which teams have the best fixtures so that we can target them. So this graphic here is provided by Yonkers FPL on Twitter. Do drop him a follow if you guys are interested. And what it tells us is basically at this point, right, where we are wildcarding in game week 9, based on the previous 4 game weeks, so game week 5 to game week 9, and then based on the next 4 game weeks, 9 to 13, which teams have the best fixture swings. And as you guys can tell, right, the green zone is where they have a positive fixture swing, right? So those teams like Leicester, Aston Villa, Fulham, Newcastle, and West Ham are all teams that have really good fixtures coming up. And teams like United, City, Liverpool, Arsenal all have negative fixture swings coming up, which makes it a really good time to wildcard as well, right? So take note that the teams that have positive fixture swings are kind of mid-table teams, right? Villa, Fulham, Newcastle, West Ham. So it is also some risks there involved by targeting those players, right? So we can't really pepper our teams with all these players, but maybe some good players from these teams can act as good differentials for us, right? And then when we move on to the red zone where we see the big teams kind of have negative fixture swings, some players are still fixture proof like Cancelo and Haaland. So I would still kind of include these players in my wildcard draft. So we will have to balance out these fixture swings and pick some players from the good ones, but also still have the staples, right? So now let's take a look at how the game week 9 wildcard is looking like. So this is how a game week 9 wildcard team can start to look like. Now it's currently based on my squad value, which is 100.8 mil. For those of you who can't afford some players, you can downgrade some of them. But currently we have Ward in goal. He plays Nottingham Forest at home, so a relatively easy fixture for them, even though I know Leicester's defense isn't great. He isn't going to start all the games, of course, right? Guaita will be the first team keeper from game week 10 onwards, but he's on the bench right now because Crystal Palace have Chelsea at home in game week 9, right? So come game week 10, he can just be a set and forget keeper in the starting 11, Guaita, right? So in defense, we have Medicash, James, Cancelo, and Trippier. Now all of them have really good fixtures coming up, and as I've said, this is an early wildcard video, right? So assuming that Cash comes back fit after the international break, right, I am expecting him to be a much better option than Luka Dean, right? He's much more attacking and more consistent with returns as well. So I do want Medicash in my team to take advantage of Aston Villa's good fixture runs coming up, right? Same goes for James and Cancelo and Trippier, where all of them have good attacking potential as well, and the fixtures coming up aren't bad at all, right? And we know Cancelo is kind of a set and forget player, so I really would want him in this team. And so in the midfield, we have Saint-Maximin, Maddison, and Salah. Now, similar to Medicash, where Maximin has been kind of nursing a little bit of an injury, right, I am assuming that he will be back after the international break as well, and then that would give us a really good entry into Newcastle attack as well, right? Saint-Maximin has been creating lots of chances, and there's a lot of assist potential for him as well. He even picked up a goal against Wolves just before he got injured, right? So a really good option there to kind of cover Isak, who we don't have because of the front three that we currently have. Now, there is Maddison as well to take advantage of Leicester's incredible fixture swing, and Nottingham Forest at home is one that I think Maddison could really return in. Now, Salah, as I mentioned just now, it just makes sense for us to go with Salah now instead of KDB when we're wildcarding now in game week 9, right? Based on lots of the reasons that we mentioned just now, but Brighton at home is a decent fixture for him as well, right? And if there is a game for him to start picking up, I think this is where, right, we really can see Liverpool kind of start to pick up based on the players that are coming back as well. Right, so as you guys can see up front, we have Haaland, Mitrovic, and Tony. Now, Haaland and Mitrovic, I think they're pretty much staples in the teams because Mitrovic's fixtures up till the World Cup is really good. Right, Haaland, needless to say, he's kind of an essential. Now, I've gone for Tony here because he has Bournemouth away, right, and he can be kept kind of up till maybe game week 13 or game week 12, right, to downgrade him thereafter to maybe upgrade Trippier to Trent Alexander-Arnold. So there are some moves that you can make potentially with this team to get you to a team that you would want come game week 12, right, where Man City blank, and also you will have to have some good bench options as well in game week 12, right? So that's where we see our bench here as kind of a strong one, where we see Emerson, Zaha, and Andreas. Now talk about Emerson first, and basically he's only 4 mil, kind of a budget enabler in this team, but West Ham do have good fixtures as well. Could be a rotation risk with Aaron Cresswell coming back, right? But I do think that if they play 5 at the back, Emerson could be a wing back, and that gives really good attacking potential there, right? So that kind of a wing back that we want, right, where he gives good attacking threat and good clean sheet potential based on West Ham's coming fixtures. Now Zaha as well is someone that I would really want, not in game week 9, but game week 10 onwards, he'll be a really key player to this team. Right, so currently he's on the bench, and then we have Andreas Pereira as kind of the what I feel is the best budget enabler as well. There's also Leon Bailey that you can go for, right? But currently there is Andreas Pereira now to kind of, you know, bring that team value down a little bit, right? Just 0.1 mil. But those of you who can afford, I think Bailey could be a good replacement for Andreas Pereira as well. So currently this is how we're looking like for a game week 9 wildcard. Let me know what you guys think, right? How is your team looking like for game week 9? At least you should be activating it now, right, to take advantage of the price rises that I mentioned just now, right? But those of you who are interested, I will be posting an updated wildcard draft later on in the international break, so do keep a lookout for that. And of course, if you did enjoy this video, please give it a like and also subscribe as well if you are new around here, and I will see you guys in the next video very soon. Bye bye.